Welcome to The Process. I'm Tola. My guest today is Bhav Patel, the founder of Storyteller. I hope you enjoy this episode. Set the stage for how your startup came to be.
Yeah, man. So going back probably a couple of years now, about 4 years ago, I was practicing as a lawyer. So, as you probably know, Aberystwyth law degree, and went in straight into law. Practiced as a lawyer for a number of years and enjoyed it a lot. And then following that, as part of the kind of, part of the being a solicitor, there's a lot of business development that comes into it now. It's a very integral part of it. You've got to kind of bring in the business as such. And I really started to enjoy that aspect of it. And for me, I was like, actually, hold on. I've practiced the lawyer for so long. I've loved the law. All of a sudden, I'm enjoying this aspect a lot more. So suddenly the goalpost started to move for me. So I started getting interested in kind of doing a lot more of this work. And I thought, actually, what I'm reading more about now, what I'm following is the likes of Elon Musk, the likes of Steve Jobs at that point, how they started Apple, how they started Tesla. So I wanted to learn more. And actually, for me, I was like, okay, cool. This is a good opportunity for me now to decide on my own venture. I didn't know how I was going to do it at that point, but I knew that I wanted to start a company.
Have you always had that fascination with business, or did you just creep around in the past few years?
Yeah, so I loved business and I loved other businesses. So I loved reading about other businesses, other entrepreneurs, quite a lot about it and the details about it. But then I think that moment that came to me was I've learned so much about it now. And also, whilst being a lawyer, I've had so many transferable skills, whether that's marketing, whether that's negotiating, whether that's drafting documents. I've learned so much more that I can take those skills and implement it into something I can create as my own.
That's great. That sounds quite interesting to me because I imagine as a lawyer, you ought to be in the courtroom.
Yeah.
That's what I visualize. So how did that occur that you handle a lot of business issues and marketing issues rather than not to say that you were in the courtroom, but obviously you said there was a lot of business involved. Like
Yeah.
how does that happen?
Yeah, so a lot of the time, like I think the courtroom and the legal statutes and everything that you do around it is really interesting. But I think at that point, I was doing quite a lot more of the business development. So it's something that I was exposed to that I wasn't exposed to for the previous 4 or 5 years. So all of a sudden now, something that I'm enjoying outside of work, I'm doing in work. And I think that's what kind of led me to actually think about that avenue and think about, okay, cool. I want to create a business now, but something that I'm passionate about. And I think that's when Storyteller came along. Was I wanted to do a business and create something that I was passionate about and was able to build upon.
So that's interesting to me because obviously you studied law. Out of, you automatically assume that you'd be interested in the business side of law. So why wasn't your interest grounded in that, and why did you look to start Storyteller?
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah. So, funnily enough, my when I practiced as a solicitor, it wasn't in business law; it was actually in medical law. So the reason why I've actually gone into law was actually to have an opportunity to give back to those that are suffering, from clinical negligence or medical issues. So to give back to people on a scale to that extent. I think that was always there. So that philanthropic side was always going to be there for me, and that's why it's such a big aspect of the business now. But for kind of going from that aspect to law was always about getting this hobby that I was in into something more substantial. And that's why you'll see that I've taken, the two things I'm most passionate about, which are travel, and then giving back to others and helping others, putting them together and then creating Storyteller.
Good. So you decide you want to start your own business. What year was this?
Probably 2017. I was like, okay, cool. I want to start a business now, but I don't know what. So, and I think that was the first thing for me. And I think the one thing I probably learned, Tola, is the more you look, the less you find something. And I think that probably goes with business ideas and new concepts. And I think at that point, I was very much looking for the next big thing. I always thought that to create a business which is substantial, is profitable, and does big things, it has to be something which is, you know, brand new invention. It has to be something like that. I never really thought that's something which you could actually produce and sell that people would buy. Because for me, I thought it has to be something that someone else isn't doing or someone else isn't selling for me to be, profitable as a business. So I think I did that for a long time, where I was researching things within the travel industry that I really enjoyed. I love traveling, so I wanted to go into that area, but then it was difficult to find that particular product for me, or something that I could sell. So for me, that was quite difficult to find. But when I did find an idea of products I could sell, that's when I thought, okay, I've got something here potentially I can go along with, but then I wanted to bring in this giving back side. And obviously that's when I brought in the Storyteller brand name of Travel More Do Good, is because we also, as a business, believe that it's philanthropic as well. So every business should give back in a certain way. And, obviously I know we'll discuss this later on, but that's one of the aspects I wanted to kind of bring into the business as a whole.
Yeah, that's great. I think, I mean, let's talk about. Okay, so you came up with the decision to start your own business in 2017. Um, when did Storyteller come to fruition? When did that idea finally spark in your mind?
Yeah, sure. So 2017 had the idea, had some sort of, I guess, potential avenue of getting to where I wanted to be, but having not been from a business background, or having not had family or friends in immediate business, it was quite difficult for me to know how to create this business. Which route do I need to take? And I think as people now, if you try and Google something about business, how to start a business, there's so much content. So how do you pick which piece to content to follow? What do you follow? Is there a plan? And I think I realized shortly after, there's no set route. I think you have to create your own route by taking information and value from different sources. Probably one of the best things I actually did was I then made sure that I had a balance between my legal job and then also now starting this business. So one day a week, I'd go to WeWorks, a very similar venture to WeWorks. And I think that's when it kind of hit me, where I'm surrounded by people here that are starting their own businesses or entrepreneurs, and discussing and speaking to people of the same nature who have either gone through a similar process or are from different backgrounds, I think gave me a really good balance really of new information. So all of a sudden I'm learning about, okay, to start a business, it's good to have a strong brand. To start a business, it's good to have a marketing tactic in terms of what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, who your audience is, how you'll reach them. And then the one thing that obviously a lot of businesses probably might not look at is profit margins, the numbers behind it all, the financials. How are you going to actually get your product here to here? How is it going to happen to the customer? And then finally, probably the most important for me was manufacturing. At that point, I had an idea, but then manufacturing processes, again, really, you can try and reach out to so many manufacturers. And then at that point, I was like, okay, I've got 3 or 4 different quotes that can make this product, completely different range. So who's going to be the right for me? So lots of information at that point, and then narrowing down and learning so much about the process really helped me kind of take it in further on. So I'd probably say the first year very much was about learning about business, how to run a business, what's involved in a business as a whole, and then taking the manufacturing process from a image of this is what I want, to sample, to okay, I've got a product now that I could potentially sell.
Absolutely. Sorry, the line cracked up a little bit there. Yeah. So you mentioned a few things there. You had to study. You basically had to come to grips with the business side of things, which I think is understandable, especially if you're coming from a non-business background. What was the heaviest part of that process for you? So, like, what did you look at and go, "Gosh, is this going to stand in my way?" Was it manufacturing? Was that accounting? Was it marketing?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I think the first thing for me, man, was I think when I was looking at all this information, first of all, I was like, this is so much information. How am I going to find the time to even read through this and find out what's right, along with having a full-time job?
Yeah.
I was kind of in a mindset of, okay, cool. If I need to go with this, I need to go full-time and quit this job, or I need to just leave it because it's not for me and I'm not going to have the time. And I think time is obviously a big, asset that we have now. Management is obviously big. But at that point, working a full-time job and then trying to find the time was quite difficult. So I think once I'd kind of taken the leap of this is the process, and I joined the 5 a.m. club. So it was very much starting off early, doing a couple of hours in the morning, coming back in the evening, getting on again. So I think because I was so passionate about wanting to do something and the areas I was working in, it kind of led me and wanted me to carry on. So the fact that I was working from 5 a.m. onwards until late evening, it didn't affect me. I was very much like, I love what I'm enjoying. And actually to the point where I can't wait to get out of my normal job to then come and work on my business. I'm like, it's nearly 5 p.m. Yes, can't wait to get onto the projects at home. So yeah, that was the kind of first aspect. I think then marketing I really enjoyed. I think when I learned about marketing, and I think, a lot of the marketing tactics you can do, there's no right or wrong answer. You can create a strategy for marketing yourself and it could work absolutely fine. A lot of businesses have tried new things. At that time, I think social media influencers was a very big thing at that time, which had just started to be used. I remember Gymshark was one of the first brands who, really took that to that extra level. Right. And that's obviously a Birmingham-based brand. So for me, I looked up to that kind of brand who had, come out and then started to use this particular platform and technique. And I thought, okay, this is another way to market the product at that point. So I enjoyed that aspect. I think bringing everything up to the website and the manufacturing were probably the two most difficult things. I wasn't very web savvy, so I wasn't that person that could able to create a website. So for me, I saw something on a different website and say, cool, okay, I'd like that, without understanding that, the different platforms, which I now understand, there's Shopify and WooCommerce and things, and understanding which platform is best for me, how to create it, what the website should look like. That was quite difficult to kind of pick for me. And then second, the manufacturing process. I guess the product that I wanted to launch, and you've probably seen now the flag neck keyrings, they're very intricate and detailed. So each hand painted, each flag is hand painted. So to find a manufacturer who can create such a quality product, but then also financially make sense was quite difficult for me. Obviously, as you would probably check, you check the UK-based manufacturers and you check international. Now, obviously, international, you are getting cheaper rates because it's bulk. You can go there bulk and you can get the cheaper rate that you can get. But the quality and the communication was just difficult. So I immediately thought, okay, I want to make sure that I can create this product UK-based and actually, if possible, give it to someone in the local community. So where I'm born and raised in Birmingham, I'd love to give it to a factory or somewhere here, just to do my bit, I guess, towards the local community that I've been born and raised in. So all the products are made in Birmingham, which is brilliant for me now. And I think that process of building this product that was uniquely designed by me and working with the manufacturers, I think they enjoyed it just as me, because we were tweaking small bits to make it work, and the whole process was quite fun in the end, but very stop-start, I'd like to say, to get the perfect sizing and everything. So that was quite testing for me initially, and then I guess going from there onwards, I then took that product, gave it to a lot of close family friends. Obviously, that's some of the Aberystwyth guys that we know from university were the first guys who tested the product, and it was good for them to be part of the process, to know what it was I was doing and be involved, because it was a really good help. I think their initial feedback has completely changed the product. So what I was happy launching is completely different to what the product is now, which is as a result of all that initial feedback that I got.
Fantastic. There's a lot in there. What came first? Was it the product or was it your learning of business? That's the first question. And second of all, I'd like you to talk about the product itself. What is this product and how does it work? What is it used for? Why this product?
Yeah, sure, man, sure. So I think learning of the business came first. As I knew that I wanted to set up a business, I didn't know what it was. I needed to learn how a business works. Is it for me? and what level of work is going to be needed here for me to succeed. And then secondly, as I mentioned, really, I wanted an integral part of the business to be that it's not a charity, but I wanted to be a social entrepreneurship. So as a business, there's no aspect of charity as such. We're not a charity, but I wanted the business to give back to a certain extent towards education. So I wanted that to be an integral part. So working out the best way to do that was, quite difficult in terms of usually at that point you're either a charity or you have a charitable foundation or you have some sort of element like that. You're not a business that does charitable work as such. So when I explained it, I think to people as well at that point, they were a bit like, so are you guys a charity or are you not? And I think that was a repeat question I got. And I think at the start, I didn't know myself.
Who did you explain this? Who did you try to explain this to? Was it friends or family? Was it business?
Yeah, friends, family. Yeah, absolutely. So friends, family, the place where I was working up with the different startups, when we share our ideas, think, what do you guys do? I'm sharing my idea. The initial thought they had was, okay, cool, you guys sell products and then give money to charity. And then I'm trying to explain what kind of, but it's slightly different model how we do. I think that all that learning and then that kind of model and the structure of the business came at the start. And then once I'd kind of worked out the structure, the model, how marketing works, how business operates, that's when I started looking into the product side. I think the initial foundation was there. And then I started building on, okay, I've got a product idea now. How do I build upon this? And your second question, man, about the product. So the product was actually made, and probably again, really, there's lots of research done, and I couldn't find anything. But then it came from actually our friend from university, Junior. So myself and Junior travel a lot, and at that point we had traveled to quite a few countries, about 5 or 6 countries within 6 months. And I think we'd come back and we would
5 or 6 countries within a short period of time. What was going on?
That was just Europe weekend aways. Yeah, but every time we'd come back, we would collect the tickets that we'd been to see particular things. We would collect the postcard from the particular place we've been to. I'd buy souvenirs like fridge magnets. We all do it, man. I'm sure you do too.
I do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you never see again, or they're there, but they're there for a short time, and then they're on your mantelpiece at home, and then that's kind of the end of it. But I guess it's one of those things that people think it's a must for each trip. It's to give you that reminder of your great memories there. So I think after one of the trips, I just remember thinking that I'm buying so much of this. I'm looking at home thinking I've got so many of these, small statues, postcards, and I can't do anything with it. I've got them stacked away, gathering dust. Nothing I can do with this. And I thought, okay, hold on. There must be a way where travelers can have something that means something. So you can go up to a country, come back and have something that means something to you. So how can you collect your special moments? How can you remember the best parts of your trip? And I thought, okay, cool. What kind of thing can people have? And I remember thinking at that point, Pandora was very big. Pandora is something that people were buying charms for at that time, whether it's a charm for a bag or an animal, something that's close to you. And I remember thinking something for that, something like Pandora for travel would be brilliant. And I think that's the initial light bulb moment. There's very much, let's think of a way where travelers can collect their memories and keep it with them at all times. And that's where the keyring flagmate came from. You attach the hand-painted country flags of each country visited, and on the back you can engrave your special moments, memories, dates, anything you want that's connected to that particular trip. So all these amazing memories from all your travels in one place was the concept behind it.
Oh wow! I mean, looking at the product, I was trying to figure out what it was. I looked through a few more photos and I was like, okay, I get this. This looks really cool. What I love about it is that it's very different. You obviously took a lot of time out to come with a concept, to do something that hasn't been really done before. I've never actually seen that done before. So at what point did you start looking into manufacturing and design and that sort of thing? Like, how at what point did you start going, okay, I have this idea solidified, I'm going to start going at it?
Yeah. I kind of had the keyring in mind originally. The reason is I think a lot of my souvenirs had been either small statues or keyrings. So that I had in mind anyway. And I think some of the keyrings, when you see them, they've got a design or they might have a bit of the part of the flag or something on there. So that initially came to mind thinking, okay, a keyring would be a great idea. How will it work? How can we connect something to this? And then I think it just kind of just a moment really of flags of each country would be brilliant, but how can we connect that together? And then I just remember just drawing out sketching ideas about how it could fit together. There were so many different designs, so many different designs. Some of them, when I took them to manufacturers, they were basically saying it's impossible, or one of the designs were that it would work, but the way that this is not a long lasting product. So it'd work initially, but once it's been used for a certain amount of time, it will basically start to affect the actual product.
So what do they mean by that? Is it in terms of the size of the keyring? Is it the stealth? What are they talking about there?
Yeah, so both. So it was basically the size of the keyring and what I wanted to attach to it, and also the type of materials I wanted to use. So the type of materials, them attaching it and creating it was going to be difficult. And also the metal, for example, if it is connected to the leather part, obviously, as you can imagine, when keyrings go in your pocket or in used everywhere, if the metal is directly touching the leather, it just hits it. And at some point, it'll start to disintegrate. So I think that was the first one, basically, of making sure that there's a gap between where the flags are and where the keyring fits. And that's why at the bottom of the actual keyring now, you'll see a metal block, which disconnects the keyring at the top and the flags at the bottom. And that's the reason why. So that came after actually producing a prototype, having this problem, overcoming it by thinking, okay, this is the problem here. We need to add a certain extent of something here to differentiate the two. And then that's when it started, okay, let's retest again.
Where did you do the manufacturing, and how did that communication process come along? Because I'm thinking, were you a defense lawyer? Were you a prosecutor? What was your thing?
So I was a medical negligence lawyer, so I was prosecuting.
A prosecutor. So you guys are very busy, obviously. Where were you manufacturing, and how did that communication process go about? Because you have a full-time job.
Yeah, of course, man. So there's times where I remember where I would have a court hearing, and then I'm coming outside, I'm talking to manufacturers, and it was hectic because during that one phase where we were tweaking the design so much, it was small tweaks. So, for example, you'll see the flag, there's a hole in the top corner of each flag, and that's to make sure that the flag can be connected to the split ring of the keyring. Okay. That hole size was changed about 4 times because I wanted to make sure it was small as possible, but it needed to be big enough that it could go around.
Your inner Steve Jobs there, because he was very precise about it.
Yeah. So we had to keep moving it literally by inch, millimeter by millimeter. It was so the difference was so small to make sure we don't take away too much of the flag, but ensure that it can move around the keyring very easily. And I think that was very much, as I say, really, I remember many instances where my lunch break consisted of speaking to manufacturers and trying to think of creative designs of how we can overcome this problem. So yeah, that was.
Were they within the country? Were they abroad? Like, where were they?
Yeah, so the manufacturers used for them are based in Birmingham. So they were at that point, I was working there as well. So it wasn't too bad for me. It was good. I think that was a very good thing, actually, looking in hindsight, having someone so close, because I could go down to the actual manufacturing headquarters where they are, look at what they're doing, see how they're doing it, and try and work with them to think, okay, this didn't work, but maybe we can try this. And I think that's why I would really say that if you want to manufacture a product from custom base, it's so good having them local to you, or at least in the country, because you can see everything that they're doing, think about creative ways that you can work together, but also then have that communication of ease of picking up the phone and thinking, okay, this is what I need. Can you do this? And if not, what can we do? And it's such a simple process, but I think in hindsight, it makes things so much easier.
Um, because I mean, as you know, I also started something within the travel space as well.
Yeah.
I was also so I went to Thailand 2019 to start this business. So I was on ground to see what was going on. So I do understand that you need to be there to see quality control, prototyping, all that stuff needs. It's very intricate in that sense. So you eventually come with a product, or you eventually have a product to sell. I'm curious, was it expensive to manufacture in Birmingham, or did the cost come to mind for you, or what happened there? Did you consider going elsewhere?
Yeah, of course, man. Funny enough, you picked up on a point that it's a very, I guess, a point that a lot of entrepreneurs that deal with manufacturing new products come against. Really, is do you manufacture internationally because it's cheaper, or do you manufacture in the UK? And usually, you find that the UK is expensive in terms of the manufacturing process. Depends what you do, but generally, I believe that the UK is probably a bit more expensive than what you can get abroad. I did have a look initially abroad, but I think a couple of things. I wanted to make sure that the product manufacturing conditions and the company I'm working with was ethical. You see a lot of, a lot of news
coming out.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I think I'd say maybe a few years ago it wasn't as open, but I think now you're seeing a lot more of the employee working conditions where things are being made. And I think when you see that, I didn't want to be part or something to be connected to a company that I've just created, to be linked with anything like that. So I wanted to ensure that the working conditions were good. Not to say that international isn't good at all, but you don't know what's going on there. You're not there to see. You're not communicating day to day to know what is going on there. And secondly, I think when you think about logistics, so if I was ordering 5,000 pieces from, for example, somewhere abroad, and then ordering the same here, when I think about the cost of manufacturing, the cost of them shipping it over to me, the cost of the
import cost, clearing all that.
Yeah, that's it, and the fact
kind of adds, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly, man, exactly. And then the fact when you add that up with, it will take them at least 4 to 6 weeks to ship to you.
Yeah.
You haven't got this, oh no, I'm out of products. Can you turn something around for me? And the guy in the UK will be like, you should have thought about this before, but I'll do it. And at least you have the option. And I've had that myself. And I think at one point early on, again, one of the things that came across, it was stock issues. And I think you kind of think about, oh, it'll be fine until you get to the last 5 and you're like, I haven't got any of this left. And then you go back to manufacturing in the UK and they can turn it around within a few weeks for you. So having that there was quite essential. And probably the key for me, in addition to all this, was the engraving aspect. Each product is custom engraved. So if a customer wants, for example, if they place an order today and the engraving is with them in 3 or 4 days, it can't happen internationally at all. Otherwise, that customer will be waiting weeks for an order. And, the times we're in now, the times where we've got Amazon Prime, which delivers a product within hours to you, you can't afford to have a business that takes 2-3 weeks to deliver a product.
I know that's a good point you raised. Because that goes back to your website. Do you sell off your website? That's the first question. Second of all, did you have to incorporate was it easy to make your money back on your investment, basically? Because when you like you said, it's expensive to manufacture in the UK. That goes without saying. How did your pricing strategy come about? And like we said about shipping logistics, that's an important issue as well. How were you able to manage that side of it as well?
Yeah, sure. From a pricing perspective, obviously the cost of the product was going to be higher for me. So when it comes to selling the product, it had to be higher. So in terms of, there might be alternatives that somebody might be able to get from, somewhere internationally and have a much more higher margin by selling it at a lower price. For me, I think I wanted to make sure that the brand and the product was all about quality. So the fact that we're using quality products in, the fact that it's long lasting, the fact that it's durable, the fact that it's not going to be a product that, you can get products for cheap. You can get alternative products, as you can see really from anywhere in the world, which is cheaper than probably the original version. But the lifetime you have on that might be shorter, or it doesn't give you the best quality. So, why I wanted to kind of do...
There's no real compromise on your part right from the start, basically.
Yeah, exactly, man. So I wanted to make sure that the quality of the product was high, and that meant that if the price was slightly higher than what people expected it might have been, for example, then people are happy to pay for a product which is A, probably quite unique as well, and B, they're getting something which is of high quality.
Yeah. The logistical side of it. How did you go about distributing to your customers? Was it via your website? Did you use your website for that as well?
Yeah. So initially, to kick things off, and again to test the market, I started a crowdfunding campaign. So you used a platform called Indiegogo, and that was very much to get customer feedback, and also increase some of the initial financials kind of for the product itself. So as you may be aware, obviously with crowdfunding, you set up a product and you can set it on a platform where anyone can buy your product. And the reason for it is they can support your brand and product at an early stage when you're starting off, and that helps you build up your finances. But also for the customer, they can get your new product at a fraction of the price. So for me, I think that was a really good way of getting initial sales through the door, but also a great way of getting initial feedback, because I think this is actual now physical customers who are getting the products, and then they are feeding back to me with questionnaires and information. So there's a lot of information I learned from that first process before I went to selling online. And that was things like some of the feedback were colors of the actual keyring itself. People want to see more colors in it. They wanted the actual ring at the bottom to hold more flags, because a lot of people actually, I thought certain people would only want to hold maybe 20, 30, but people thought, I've been to 60 countries, is this for me? So I needed to kind of cater for this larger traveling audience who wanted to hold, quite a lot of countries. And I guess from then onwards, I thought, actually, this could be a product where people continue to collect all the way through. So whether they've been to 60, 70 countries, this one product they can just add to as they go along.
How did you position? I think this is the more psychological side of it. How did you position the brand in people's minds? Because, like I said, there's quality involved, but there's also usability, right? Like, how did you position it in such a way that people know what it is that they're buying, and who did you target specifically?
Yeah, I guess it goes back slightly to the brand. As you might know, that the concept of the brand, behind the brand, is 10% of every product that you purchase goes to educational projects that help support and give quality education for those less fortunate. For me, that was obviously quite a big part of it. And initially, I thought this is something that travelers really understand. When you go traveling, you see a lot. You see the amazing sights. You learn so much about yourself. You develop new skills. But also, you see this side of travel that, you see the poverty, you see the problems that are, going on around the whole world. And for me, I thought, if anyone's going to understand these issues, it will be travelers who are going to be buying these products. So that's for cool. Me, so that aspect, man, I thought that travelers would understand more maybe than somebody else. So that was key for me to target the travel audience. Secondly, if, for example, someone is traveling around the world and they wanted to clip this keyring onto their backpack or their luggage or anything they wanted to do, and then going on a number of trips every year, it needs to be durable. So giving them that assurance that this product is durable, it can last, it's long lasting, it can go with you on all your travels, was essential. So that came as part of the marketing, and the initial videos that we created for the product showed what it was, how it was made, and why it was durable. So that shows the customer looking at this, that this product is for me because A, it's long lasting, it works, but also they're giving back to something that I know is a problem around the world.
Okay. When was the official product launch?
So after that campaign, the crowdfunding campaign, when I learned so much, man, I cannot say that I would have done it any other way. Such a good way to learn so much about the brand and the product itself.
Right.
Then launched officially in August 2018.
Okay.
So coming
I'm actually
up.
curious about the crowdfunding strategy you put in place
Hmm.
because, like you said, that's a great way to learn about the product and to also, I guess, get your product to the hands of your customers. Who suggested that? Did you research that? Did you speak to other entrepreneurs? Like, because that's an important step.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hadn't been aware of any platforms like this before. So again, it was just speaking to other entrepreneurs who had down a similar path of creating a product, going down this path of using a crowdfunding platform to see what feedback they got. And a lot of people use that not for the financials, actually. It was more for the feedback and how to improve the product. And that's why I thought it would be a good way for me. And I think it was a very good way in terms of like for me to get initial capital back from what I'd put into the business already, but then also learn so much about the product. So when it does launch, I'm in a position where I've probably developed it that bit further to give it that extra bit. So when it's going to market now, it's probably in a better position than it was a couple of months before.
Cool, cool. I want to talk about you a little bit. So you studied law and was medical law, you said?
Yeah, yeah.
And tying back to your business, it's about helping people less fortunate. What is it about you that's drawn to that sort of thinking? Have you always been that way?
Yeah, so I guess the reason why I went to law and the reason why I went to medical law was to kind of try and give back to those who needed that extra bit of help. And even from university days where I was helping at citizen advice and legal workshops, it was also always something that I wanted to do my bit towards helping others. And I did a lot of volunteering as well. So on projects where I was abroad, I was always do a couple of days of volunteering. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that feeling of able to give back and give something that I could, in my way. So when it came down to having something where I could potentially have it as part of a business, that was very integral for me. How I probably originally thought about it was that the business would have employees or the team would volunteer. And that's my initial thought. That was it, really. I think we would volunteer and we'd do as much as we can. But then I still remember back a couple of years ago, I listened to a podcast. Um, it was the School of Greatness, Lewis Howes.
Okay.
Yeah, so awesome podcast, and I've learned so much from it over time. But I was listening to a podcast with Timothy Sykes, and I remember he said, if you want to make an impact, volunteering is great, but if you want to make a truly big impact, you've got to give financially and have a bigger business that can give back.
I
So
agree.
the analogy, yeah, the analogy is you want to have something which is creating a big impact so you can give back bigger.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Um, s- I looked on this Instagram, like I said, and there's a lot of work going on in India and I suppose other parts of the world. Is this an international project that you're going towards?
Yeah, so we partnered with a couple of global charities. So UNICEF, NextGen, Room to Read, a couple of charities, but then including also the small local NGOs. So we partnered with these charities to firstly understand the process, how they work, what they do, and then 2 years ago we, as a team, so three of us went to India and Nepal ourselves, and we partnered with local NGOs out there. So very very small organizations, and
Right.
we worked with them for a couple of months where we did a lot of work such as renovating whole schools, running workshops to develop social skills, running business entrepreneurship skills for adults. So we did a lot of work out there ourselves, understanding what kind of things we can give back. So that was the kind of global side of it, which we really enjoyed doing ourselves as well. And I think the fact that it's coming from product sales, I'm able to now give back individually again, brings a circle back to us. So that was amazing for us. Globally is the plan long term, but also not forgetting that we can do just as much in the UK.
I was gonna say,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so whilst the lockdowns obviously been in place, we haven't been able to go abroad and do any of the projects abroad. And that, I guess, in a way has helped us just reevaluate and restructure our giving back model. So what we are now doing is we have partnered with an organization in the UK called ARC. And what they do is they work with schools that basically need the help, are in less privileged areas, and have a need, I guess, of the extra assistance from other organizations, but more about helping the children in school develop new skills as well. So we've been working with them to lead workshops in terms of helping children at a certain age, 14, 15, 16, learn about business and entrepreneurship. Sometimes I think when you're speaking to them, when you're not a teacher and you're speaking to them, you have an extra connect. And I think that's what we realized. And I think probably going back, I think we probably realized the same thing, didn't we? I think when somebody else comes in, we're all ears.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember during a marketing class back in ABBA, this guy came as an entrepreneur and he was speaking about his business, about making tea. Like he built this multi-million pound business in Wales making tea. And of course, everyone was all ears because it was he was giving practical examples about how he created the packaging and what have you. So yeah, I get that 100%. So I have a few more questions I want to ask because I'm quite curious about this. So the team you formed, were they volunteers? Were they friends? Like how did you get the help you needed? Because I can see saw a lot of familiar faces on the page. Yeah. How'd you get that help?
Sure, man. So initially, I think it was just me creating the kind of backwork. So up until the crowdfunding campaign, a lot of people didn't know what I was doing. So they knew that I was kind of working on something, but a lot of people didn't know exactly what I was working on or what the idea was at any point. So it was only around early 2017, late 2017, early 2018, where I started to tell close friends and family that this is what I've been working on, this is the idea. And I wanted to make sure that the people that were involved in it were going to bring, a lot of skills and value to the actual team overall. And I think I knew that with my close friends and family, the guys from ABBA were amazingly supportive, as they always are, but they also bring this different mindset, different thinking. A lot of them some of them are more creative than me, a lot more creative than me. Some of the other guys will bring a different aspect. So I think they're all volunteering, but I see them as part of the brand. I think they've done so much towards helping me kind of finalize the product, looking at them, giving their reviews on it, being part of the projects when we go abroad. They're all there, supporting every time we've got events. So they are volunteering their time, but I see them as part of the brand, and they are part of the Storyteller family.
Wow. That brings me on to my next question. You mentioned the pandemic, which of course has been impactful in more ways than one. How did it? Because I saw you guys were running a bunch of events across. I think you did some stuff in India as well. So at what point? So the pandemic occurs. How did that reshape the scope of what you were trying to do?
Yeah, of course. So probably as a whole, we had to pivot the business. As you can see, obviously, a lot of the accessories that we sell are travel based, and then all of a sudden, there's a travel ban. Yeah.
Can't travel.
So technically, you've kind of driven the customer who is traveling is no longer traveling, so they don't need the additional flags anymore. So how do you then create, market to an individual who actually doesn't need to go anywhere? They are not going anywhere. So how do you pivot the business? So from a product perspective, what I did at that point was think, okay, traveling might be on hold, but it doesn't mean that people that haven't seen this product still can't capture their previous travel memories. So the marketing tactics we used was very much going down the lines of we can't travel right now, but let's reminisce about our amazing travel memories. So it's speaking to an audience who don't have the product to now think, we're at home, we can't go anywhere, so let's sit, talk, travel, and reminisce about the brilliant times we've had before.
Right.
That was one aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that resonates with me because, as I said, I'm also in that space as well, and um, I started 2019, July, August. The products arrived September, October, and of course November, December. It's about, let's say, 4 months into
Mm.
the pandemic start, and no one can travel. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I have to go because I can't use travel because it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Um, how did that impact you? Like, did you go, I've got to adjust, or um, what am I gonna do? Like, what happened in your mind personally?
I think initially it was a bit of a shock, because I didn't really know the extent of it. Like, many of us didn't know the extent of it anyway. We didn't know, how long it was going to last, or to a certain extent what it even was, at that point. But the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, this is kind of exciting in a way, because as a business, you now have to pivot. And I think, to a certain extent, from 2018 to 2020, it'd been going ahead to a certain, been going well, but
Consistently, yeah.
yeah, consistent. But I think sometimes you need a refresher. You need something to challenge you sometimes.
Do you think you needed that refresher?
100%, man. I needed that challenge to bring something new. And then,
Oh.
in addition to the products that we already had, I added a new collection, two new collections at that point, which I don't think I would have added.
Why do you think you needed a refresher? Was it? Do you think you were going stale? Do you think you were? Because I assume you're still working as a lawyer.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So do you think you were lax in some way? Like, what was going on there?
Yeah, so I think as a business, I was still growing, but I wasn't growing the product base, because I think I was comfortable with the product going well, that initial product, and then
Mm.
it's difficult to, when you've got a product like that, which is quite a unique product. I didn't want to add something which was anything and everything.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think I was thinking quite carefully about what to add next. And although I added certain products, but I hadn't added too many things. And I think that this gave me an opportunity to use the concept and think carefully about what else people could collect. So at that point, I brought out the Changemaker range, which is flags, again, hand painted flags, but they were going towards Pride was one of the ones. One was Black Lives Matter. Again, that was an issue that was coming up, last year again, and that people wanted to support and show their support. So we bought Pride flags, Black Lives Matter, and NHS hero flags.
Mm.
Those three concepts obviously were the things that myself and everyone was passionate about, last year and going forward. And I saw it as an opportunity of these three areas people will continue to support. So
Mm.
if they have something that they can keep with them, they would enjoy that and they'd like to show that we're supporting this particular campaign. Like when you see charities and you see, for example, breast cancer awareness, and they have the badge showing that. I saw this in a similar way of people be proud to say I'm supporting this particular campaign, and then instead of having 10% of each product going to education, we use 10% of each product going towards an organization that supported that particular
Of course.
cause.
That's
Yeah.
clever. That's clever. Um, so the pandemic was a shock, but you're still alive, basically, in that sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think we said to just pivot, I think, from product, but also from a marketing perspective as well, in terms of how we were marketing and what we were doing. Previously, obviously, we were writing about how great travel is. Let's go and visit this country, and this is the project we're doing next. And I think it came to a standstill of complete refreshing of what can we talk about, because
Yeah.
travel was such probably an upsetting topic for many, because we couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
People didn't want to hear about it as much, so it was
Absolutely.
difficult for
Absolutely.
us to go on social and things. And I'm sure you might have had that at that point, because
Yep.
how
Yep.
did you then carry on speaking about your products at that point?
I mean, for me, I had a lot of my mindset was similar. I didn't want to just create another product. That
Mm,
I didn't see the utility in that. And I mean, the fact that the travel industry was impacted the way it was, it gave me some time to reflect a little bit more, and think careful. I knew I had to be careful about whatever it was I did. So I tried to. I mean, the biggest thing I heard was say the neck pillows. People use neck pillows at home.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't want to go down that path because it would mean I'll need to pivot every time something drastic occurs. And yeah, so I was careful. I knew the brand was, I think it's a little younger than yours, so I didn't want to do that pivot too soon because I was still trying to build the brand organically. So I just maintained that course. Um, Built the idea of fun more so than travel. Um, and also I tried to lay off the promotion, um, the pedal, so that it wasn't too intense, right? So I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that it was just building organically.
Mm.
But yeah, I think, like Riley said, there's no point going in there making drastic changes. You tweak as you see the need to, um, which I respect a lot. Um, how are you doing personally, mental health wise, work wise, and where do you see your business going? Because I look at your business and I go, you have a lot of great ideas, you have a great product. The cynical side of me goes, there's a lot of social responsibility stuff going on here. Um, how do you balance out with the corporate side of it, where you need to make money?
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, great question. I think that always something that I've always got to think about in terms of the impact continuing from a social level, but then also financially as a business, making sure that we're growing and able to expand. So um, there are times where the products are also maintaining this fund. So 10% of each product is going to a fund, and we're using that fund. However, we are then using fundraising campaigns through the year too. So as for example, charities are topping up their own funds by doing fundraising campaigns. We are also doing that since last few years, where that then helps us add additional income um, to that resource, so we can continue doing social work and our educational work on a larger scale, but then also then able to expand from our product base as well going forward. From I guess from next, looking forward, where I see the business going is continuing the way we are in terms of the model is exactly say the same, but having many more angles to fund the social work and partnering with other organizations that are also impactful. So partnering with other social entrepreneurships and NGOs that can help us to create this big impact that we want to create long term. And then from a product perspective, again, I think one thing that I want to do and is key for me is collaboration. I think you'll see a lot of it. You're probably aware of it as well in your business side as well. Is collaboration is key now. Whether you're collaborating someone in your space or with somebody in a different space, but coming together, collaboration is key. And I think that's one of the areas that will help us develop and go to a different audience, whether that's a company in the UK or internationally. It'll help us bring in a different audience. So that's where I see some growth happening, initially, and then going forward, adding more products to our offering at the moment, and then ensuring that the existing customer base become fans. So we're keeping the customers and they're part of the storyteller community. So that's where we see our customers, and we see them as long-term, fans of the brand.
Right, right. So back to the previous question I asked. How are you doing, pandemic wise? Work wise, how are you still able to balance those two responsibilities? That's the second question. And where do you see your business going?
Yeah. So I think the pandemic's kind of hit home initially. I think the keep making sure that the mental health is, I'm making sure I'm focusing on my mental health and my just wellness as a whole. I think, especially working from home, as I've been working from home on now both projects. Whereas when I was working in the office, I had this office work home balance.
Yeah.
I'm in a different location. I'm in a different space. Right now, I've got the same table. That's the same office for both jobs. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, trying to differentiate the two sometimes can get a bit difficult. But I think it's just drawing that line to know there's got to be some sort of break in between, because it's so easy right now with the pandemic that we don't know what time it is, or we start work and we just finish
Absolutely.
work, because there's no kind of commuting time or anything like that at all that you've got to break your day up. So I just make sure that I've got a certain routine that I've put into my schedule, and that is the first thing I do is get up quite early, take some time for myself where I'm just planning my day ahead, understanding what the key tasks for that day, and then putting in some sort of run or some sort of activity that just helps boost the kind of wellness, and it gives me a break. So whether that's middle of the day or whether that's first thing in the morning, just having that just boost of activity really helps me kind of capture just my mind and just make sure my mindset's in a good space. And I think probably the biggest thing which I probably failed at the start of the pandemic was having an end time. I think it's so hard to when you're in the middle of something, you can be like, okay, I'm just gonna finish this one final task, and then it's 8-9 p.m.
Yeah.
And I think then it's okay, I've got to go to bed now because I need to be up early. So I think having that balance of there's a cutoff time and there needs to be a cutoff time is so important to have. And now I think I've put that more in now. But as you can imagine, man, it's hard to do it initially because you think, great, I've got the entire day now. So yeah. But yeah, having, as you asked really earlier, having the balance now, probably having the legal job and then this as well now, it's been good. The positives have been that there's no commuting time. So I can have the extra hour earlier finish if I need to of my legal job. I can finish at a certain time and start at a third time and finish and then have a break and then start this without any gaps in between, I guess, and any commute time. So that's been really helpful. But as I say, really, I think just having those kind of timings has been just very important for me.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see Storyteller going? As a sort of roundup, where do you see, what's your vision for Storyteller? It's a very young company. Where do you see it going? And what have you, I keep hitting with this two-barreled question tactic, but where do you see your business going? And what have you learned? What's the most important thing you've learned so far?
Yeah, sure. So as a business, I think I see us going up on a more of a global stage now. So as products are based, I think right now our key customers have been UK based primarily. And that's why I think now it's expansion to USA firstly, and then Europe, obviously then coming after that. That's going to be a key markets for us. I think we've got a good customer base and we've got good information and customer acquisition now. We know who our target customers are. So then now branching out into these different areas of the world will be key, but that will bring in an expansion base of our customers. And again, really, I think what will help with that is adding in a different range of products and collaboration with other brands. And the brands, obviously, we're looking to collaborate with will be those, that have got that offering of customers coming from a different location as well. So, adding those in, I think we're looking at kind of growing now, and that's the next steps for me from a product and financial perspective as well as a brand. And then I think from a social perspective as well, we want to make sure that we are doing kind of carrying on this community that we've created of giving back, but also helping the focus on the UK. I think that's something that we've obviously done, during the pandemic. We've helped young students learn all about entrepreneurship, learn about the skills that are needed for any business. And I think right now we're in an age where, I think you'll probably agree with me that 15, 20 years ago, we were very much in school thinking, right, it's all about these subjects and you need to be good at maths, English, science, and those are your key areas. And then from there, you can go into another area. Whereas now, entrepreneurship is up there. And I think the kids nowadays are looking at the likes of Elon Musk. They're looking at the guys like Steve Jobs who created, Apple, that these guys are amazing and they're our idols. Even I guess when you look at people like Dwayne Johnson, he obviously is in the film industry, but when you look at the amount of ventures that he's involved in, people are seeing that day in, day out now on Instagram, social media. So now when kids are kind of growing up and they look at what they want to be and what they want to be involved in, they're seeing, the people that they're following creating amazing brands, working with other brands. So entrepreneurship is so big up there, and that's why we want to focus on building the next entrepreneur base. And in particular, I think we'd love to support social entrepreneurs. And helping people understand that you don't need to be a charity, you don't need to be a foundation, you don't have to have that. If you want to, brilliant. But if you don't want to, as a business, you can still do your bit and give back whatever you may do as a business.
Great. I guess just to round this up, it would be nice, like I said, it would be nice to know what you've learned, what you think the most, maybe not the most important lesson, but what has stuck with you throughout your journey as an entrepreneur. I think it's important to always, like you said, it's important to always reflect on these things. I think the fact that you interacted with other entrepreneurs at the early start can also give you a lot of insights as well, that you could reflect upon. What has stuck with you so far, and what do you think you'll be taking along with you as you move forward?
Yeah, of course, man. So I guess firstly, if I was saying, the things that I've learned during the journey, and I think I've learned skills that I've probably taken from business world to my personal world as well. Initially, I think I was scared of failing. I guess that was a big thing of, I don't want to do all this work and then fail, or something doesn't go to plan, having that expectation. I think now I realize failure is great, man. Failure is great. I think
failure is inevitable if you're building something new. Yeah.
Absolutely agree, man. Absolutely agree. And I think failure is great. And I think if you look at it in that way, you're gonna be okay. No matter how much you know about business, no matter how much you know about products, no matter how much you know about customers, there's going to be some point where you could thought, actually, I could have done this better, but you've learned. And that's the main thing. I think that's probably one of the biggest learnings I can take away from it. Second is probably perfection is the enemy of progress. That for me, I think, is when you're in a fast-paced business life, you want to move forward. You want to make sure that you're still making steps and you're taking small steps each day. Probably, I guess, what I did a lot of initially was trying to wait for the perfect time, or waiting for the perfect video, or trying to put together the perfect image. And I think I spent so long on doing these things, thinking about actually, then, it's just a social media post sometimes. And I'm spending hours editing and writing this caption. And I'm thinking, actually, sometimes it needs to just go out there, because the value will be there in any event, but you spending 3 or 4 hours trying to do that will not actually make a difference to your long-term objectives. So that was key for me, man. So I think those are a couple of things I've definitely learned over time. And I guess if there was, come back to your second question, was if I was to go back and probably say advise someone of who's starting a new business, or even advising myself years ago, how would I do it? I think I wouldn't have changed the way I did it in terms of having a full-time job and working on a startup. I think that really brings a good balance, because I think you don't feel scared of failing, because you think it's okay. Worst case scenario, I've still got some sort of financial income coming in. So, but you also need that financial income to invest into your company at the start. So I think financially is also a key part of it that, we all need to consider as well at the same time. So that I would never have changed. The second thing probably is pick the right team or business partners. Sometimes, as myself, really, although I run Storyteller on my own, I've got an amazing team around me, and I think that they're close friends who give so much value in terms of whether they're helping on the charitable projects, whether they are providing their feedback on products, whether they're helping with social, or any advice they can. So I think having and being around that kind of energy is incredible, and it's such a must for any solo entrepreneur. If they're starting a business with a team, the one thing probably, I'm sure you probably agree as well, is having someone who complements your skill set. There's no point. There's no point having 7 lawyers in a room and none of you are creative.
I
Yeah,
agree 100%, yeah.
that's a couple of them, man. And then I think the final thing would probably be create a company which is based on something that you're genuinely passionate about. Because in the long term, that will make getting out of bed a lot easier, and it'll make you kind of get up and want to work on it, so it doesn't feel like a job.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember I think you messaged, I think it was last night, you said, oh, do you want to talk about how you're gonna um advise?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think this entire interview has been a learning activity in its own right because it's like every single step you took was, is this gonna work? Like, how much do I need to learn? So I think I can identify with that. Like you mentioned, progress or perfection is the enemy of progress. Yeah, I can identify with that to an extent because you feel. I remember when I returned to the UK, it took me a few, I'll say about a month, maybe a bit longer, to actually start posting on Instagram. And even then, I did a lot of the ones of the original posts because I wasn't happy with them. I felt a little pressure to do so.
yeah, of course.
But you need to start. And the only way you can get better is if you start, because you see the mistakes, you address them, you move forward. And I think what's key to what you're saying is decision making, right? If you're in a fast-paced environment, you're a lawyer, you have to think on your feet. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to think on your feet. You can't spend hours working on one problem. You don't have that luxury all the time. So yeah, I mean, your entire journey is. I mean, if no one learns from that, then maybe you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. But it's full of lessons. You know what I mean? So, I mean, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. Um, Stay safe, stay well.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll be in touch because I think I would love to know how your journey is going and how I can be of help, that sort of thing.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much as well, Tola, for taking the time out and creating such an amazing podcast. I think when we spoke about the podcast and how it works together in terms of talking about the process behind everyone's thinking and the process behind different things, it's incredible to see how many different processes are, hidden behind everything. And I think, having this conversation with you has made me think the amount of processes we've discussed today.
You don't realize it. You don't realize until
you don't realize.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
yeah, I think for me, the genesis of it was because I write a lot of poetry. I've been doing that for many years now.
Yeah.
And even to this day, like each process is different to come up with something that's actually good. You just realize that I thought I had this nailed, but you realize that no, you got to keep learning, you got to keep learning, you got to keep adapting, like you had to do during the pandemic, So it's wonderful that way, So yeah, thank you so much, man.
Of course, man.
And, obviously, you're welcome to come back and tell me more about what you're doing. The platform is open to you.
No, thank you so much, man.